Alright, we're gonna start this one off with Benten Burning. The last mission. Okay, I guess I'm messing around in the menu again. Cool, cool. We're gonna start this one off with Benten Burning, which is not actually the last level in Benten Show. It would seem like it, given that there's only been one level, or the Golden Rhino sections for both Shibuya and Kogane Show. But it's not. So at least we have another one to go after this. As usual, for the missions that require a lot of graffiti, I'm picking Gum because of the high graffiti stat. Right now, you could probably afford to go with Piranha or Yo-Yo as alternatives if you like graffiti as your primary method of scoring, but I don't see the need to, or at least in my experience, I don't.
Members of the Golden Rhino, you must find...
Cool grab. Very cool grab. In the digital version of this game, there is also an achievement for not getting grabbed once in an entire playthrough. Like a lot of the achievements in this game, I don't see why you would do them. There's no tangible benefit to getting them other than the fact that the achievements just exist. With that being said, I do actually have all the achievements on the Steam version of the game, although I did not record them for this series. They were in previous playthroughs, so I'm not going to back up my claim with footage, but as you can tell, it's very real and it happened. Getting no grabs in a playthrough is really difficult. It takes several attempts because you have to not only know the levels well, but you have to avoid the enemies in those levels, which is really annoying, especially in, well, mostly this level. I don't have as much trouble with the other ones, but with Benten, like with Benten Jet Graffiti, I do tend to have that difficulty. You also might have noticed a giant dude in, like, martial arts attire. They are actually not the problem. They do, of course, do damage to you, but they move fairly slow. Their attacks do a lot of damage, but their slow movement makes them easier to deal with. Just so I hit the score requirement on this level, I think this is where I actually start looping around Benten, which gives a preview of some of the stuff you do for Benten Jet Tech. If I'm wrong about that, well, you'll just have to wait to Benten Jet Tech to see the actual loop, which is basically the only place where you'll probably really need it unless you're playing as score-based characters during the story levels and you want a jet rank. Like with Benten Jet Graffiti, a lot of the issue of this level, especially when playing with a low-max spray can character such as Gum, is having to go back and forth between the areas where the spray cans are held and where you actually have to spray stuff. Because of that, I end up using most of the time that's allotted to you in this mission, which is a lot considering the mission is like almost 15 minutes worth of time. I think over 15 minutes worth of time, actually. However, like I was saying about the martial arts dudes, they move slow, they attack for a lot of damage, they're pretty cool enemies. I actually am a little disappointed that they only show up in this level, because they appear nowhere else in the game. I would like to see them in more places, because I think they're underused. They would have been, I think, more fun for applying pressure in some of the tighter spaces in the levels. Because, like, over here, if you had to spray a multi-stage graffiti and they're slowly approaching you, it's difficult to deal with, but it's actually quite a lot of fun. Like, I think that's just really good design, but it's critically underutilized in my opinion. The areas between the bridges are also helpful in case you take damage, which you almost certainly will at some point in this mission. But now that we've got the cans, we can move back to unofficial name Highway 0. Just finish up whatever sprays we have here, I hope. Unfortunately, it does, like I said, take several attempts to do this if you have a low max can character. Especially if you're going for the optional graffiti, which I'm going to. The music that's being played right now, you might have also noticed another recurring composer in the game.
Execution center to all golden rhinos. Assassin number 3 will be there shortly. Be careful. You can expect fire
Oh,
damage.
cool, fire enemy. Very exciting. So this composer, David Soul, or this artist David Soul, depending on what designation you prefer, is the second most common track maker, and I put that in kind of quotes for reasons I'll describe in a second. They contributed 6 tracks total to the game. Technically, it varies depending on the version of the game you play. I find that a little bizarre, but I'm making a version differences video as well, which will go over, well, version differences, including soundtrack differences between versions, because different versions of the game have some added and some removed songs, which I think for a game with an amazing soundtrack such as this, noting the differences is vital, because every song in this game matters to me in some way. The reason I put a caveat on David Soul having created 6 tracks for this game is because they were also technically released separately from the game as their own album. But David Soul actually does have the songs that are used in this game as their own record, which I guess makes this is one of the, not the first instance of a licensed soundtrack, because Hideki Naganuma technically would be the only person in this game that counts as an artist specifically hired for the game, I think. Almost all other songs were pre or concurrently existing compositions. The game's interesting in that it mixes originally created tracks and licensed tracks and stuff like that. On the subject of music and version differences, the European, North American Dreamcast versions onwards, which includes the digital version we're playing now and De La Jet Set Radio on the Dreamcast in Japan, they have the largest soundtracks and include the most licensed tracks in the game, which makes things... I'm not going to mute the tracks unless it gets like a region block in the videos, because I want to show the game's soundtrack, but the licensed songs do pose more of a problem in that regard. Oh, we've sprayed enough red to get the flamethrower boys on our tail. These are actually not... They're annoying enemies. They do a lot of damage because the fire does a lot of damage, but they're not actually the worst enemies in the game. The fight or flight enemies in Kogane Cho are much more difficult to deal with than these guys. By comparison, they're not a problem in the slightest. Hey, I jumped him. I don't know why I find that so satisfying, but jumping over enemies on the slopes has always been something that's fun. I think I mentioned at some other point in this series that if you build up speed on ramps and jump, you can get the aerial tricks. It's not exclusive to just jumping between rails. And at least I have some footage to show that off now. I think that's everything for Gekijo Mai and hopefully Highway Zero, so at this point I can move on to the train line, which technically still is Gekijo Mai, and also unofficial name Chinatown. You know, if I can make the jump, which I guess I can't. On the bright side, I'll get a few extra points because of my failure from combos, so silver lining, I guess. Do I get it on this attempt? Yes, I do. Okay. I said it when we unlocked Mew, and I'll say it again. That specific jump takes me way more attempts than it should, just because it's kind of a specific angle. Like, when I was doing the Mew challenge, and almost every time I do the Mew challenge, it ends up taking me at least 3 attempts to do it. The specific jump on the rail in Gekijomai to that fence is really... It's useful if you can do it, but if you can't, it's detrimental. Hello, Fire Boys. I didn't even know you could get that jump. Like, I genuinely forgot that you can jump up from that rail onto the other one. I thought... I don't know if it's intentional or not, but the only way you're supposed to be able to get onto that upper platform with the fence on it is supposed to be from the big tower rail jump. I guess there is a faster way around that if you can do it consistently. Plus, I think in this level, in this area specifically, is the first time I found a secondary loop in Ben 10. This area has like a loop that I can almost complete because there are so many rails and wall-rideable walls in a cycle, which was great because I needed extra points, so this was a good way to get them without having to resort to specifically relying on graffiti, because I got hit too many times, I think, while doing the graffiti. Unfortunately, I'm running low on cans, which means I'm not going to be able to finish the graffiti, and probably I'm going to have to backtrack somewhere for more cans. I saw a few over there. Hopefully I can get... Oh, boy. Time to grind the rail real slow. Okay, so that's a decent amount of cans. I should be able to get by at least with some of the graffiti with that. Hopefully I'll be able to finish the area. Because again, I don't have a ton of time left for this mission. Oh, am I doing it? Nice. That wall ride is particularly difficult. It's one of the ones where I can't seem to hit the angle very well, but getting those loops gives me a good amount of extra points. That was a very cool and non-cut pause. So here's why the flamethrower guys are a little bit frustrating, because you're going to keep getting hit by flames every time you run near them, which for extra large graffiti becomes particularly problematic, because you'll be teleporting back and forth between spots on it. With that, we beat the second last Ben 10 show story mission.
That's right.
Let's get scratching.
Jet Set Radio! Them nasty Roku posters have all been covered up by GG Graffiti. Way to go! But when they weren't looking, someone swiped the record. You gotta go after them, right?
In general, I would agree with Professor K in going after them, but I'm actually going to delay that to do Kogane Jet Crush, because that's available right now. We technically, not really in terms of score requirements, did the exact same thing before when unlocking Slate, but now we have to do it again in order to get the jet rank on the stage. I've mentioned it before, but jet ranking the extra jet missions, Jet Crush, Jet Technique, and Jet Graffiti, playing them at all is not mandatory to unlock everything this game has. I just want to do them to show what the requirements are for the score, in case anybody wants to play them, because they are enjoyable.
3, 2, 1,
I'd say this level is probably the most... I wouldn't say lenient because of the amount of time it takes to finish the level, but the time limit you have in terms of score, like getting a jet rank for this particular Jet Crush, is somewhat lenient if you know what you're doing. A decent shortcut is across that rail. It saves you a bit of time in order to just quickly cross over the waterway in the sewer. If you don't do that, you lose like maybe 10 seconds at most, but those seconds can add up for the timer, and I wanted to get the jet rank, so I'm going as quick as I can with this. Now, were I more confident in my abilities, I would try wall riding the walls just for a bit of extra speed. I think it can be done, but the rails at the end are short and hard to land on if you wall ride, so it's kind of an inconsistent strategy if you're trying to get through this quickly. It's not one I tend to do because of that. I'm trying to also use the little divots in the ground here as speed boosts because your jump speed is also based on the acceleration you had on the last tile or the last polygon you stepped on. So if you're on a slant, then you'll jump further than you would. If you're on a slant going down, you'd jump further than you would on a slant going up, which is why you move so fast in this particular area.